Hello, and welcome to Our Special Lives. I'm Laura McGrath, and today we are talking about what I like to call the back to school mainstream letter, which was a game changer for us when our son started school. If your child is going into an educational environment where it's an inclusion program or a portion of it is mainstreamed, this exercise will help your child better integrate into that classroom, and it will also help the parent better integrate and get more support from the other classroom parents. When our son started a typical preschool program, which was an inclusion-based program, meaning that he was in a classroom with other typical children, we realized that it would create more ease for him and for us if we opened a dialogue with the other parents in the classroom. We did this by writing a letter to the parents in the classroom, and the teacher sent out our letter to the parents before school started. We felt like writing this letter was an important way to open the doors with the parents and the children, because human nature is that we tend to avoid situations which are unfamiliar or potentially scary or could potentially create an awkward situation. We used a formula in the letter that made the letter very successful in terms of letting the parents and children know about our son. And not only did we write about him, but we also included pictures of him so that the children could see what activities he liked doing and what he looked like, so that they weren't confronted with an unfamiliar situation on the first day of school. So today I'm going to walk you through the letter. I'm going to walk you through each part of it. I'm going to link to my blog below. And on my blog, I will post a copy of the letter in Word, so that if you like this idea and you want to create your own letter, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can take my letter and use parts of it that you want to use and customize it however you'd like. So let's get started. We'll go through all the sections of the letter, and I'll tell you the purpose of each one, and I'll read you actually what our letter says for each of those sections. Okay, so the first section of our letter is the intro, and this is where you talk about why you're writing the letter, what your purpose is. We always mention how helpful it is if the parents talk to their children about the letter before school starts and show them the pictures, so that the children are prepared with the information when they meet your child. So I'm going to read the first section of our letter. It says, "Hello, we are the parents of Finn McGrath, who is a second grade student at blank elementary school, and we're very excited about the start of the new year. Finn is a happy, bright boy who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy many years ago. He's nonverbal and he uses a wheelchair in the classroom. Through Finn's previous school experience, we have found that it is helpful to open a line of communication with the other parents in the classroom, because having a child who is a little different might invite some questions and sometimes concerns or fears by the kids he interacts with. This is totally normal. We wanted to give you a little background on Finn so that you could be prepared for any of these questions if they arise at home. We've also found that it is so helpful for parents to have a conversation with their kids about Finn, so that they are not uncomfortable or confronted with a possibly unfamiliar situation in the classroom." Okay, so that's the first paragraph, why you're writing the letter and what you hope to achieve, and asking the parents to enlist their help in educating themselves and their children on your child. The second section is where you describe the disability or difference, and it's important that you use simple, clear, and factual terms. You really want to try to avoid interjecting any judgment about the condition or issue. So you want to try to stay away from adjectives like terrible or very bad or tragic, or those sorts of adjectives. You want to just be really factual, and you can speak about any differences the child may have, physically, intellectually, emotionally, if the child requires any special help or equipment in the classroom, or any behaviors that the child may exhibit incident to their diagnosis. But the point is, you want to clearly and factually convey the information so that the parents know what's going on and the parents and children can kind of know what to expect. So this is what our letter says in that section. During Finn's birth, his umbilical cord became compressed or pinched over his shoulder, and he was without enough oxygen for a period of time before delivery. While this caused injuries to most of his organs at birth, all recovered except for an injury to his brain in the specific area that controls bodily movements. This is why he has cerebral palsy, which is an umbrella term for a neuromuscular issue which originates in the brain. Finn's type of cerebral palsy is called Athetoid cerebral palsy, which is a rarer form. He kicks his legs and moves his arms all the time, but not in a coordinated way. So he doesn't have much ability to move his body functionally. At the current time, Finn is not able to sit independently, talk, crawl, or walk, but Finn is a happy, sweet boy regardless. Because of the muscle weakness in his mouth and throat, he has difficult breathing without effort. So when he was 18 months old, he had a tracheostomy, or a small tube inserted in his throat, which he uses to breathe more easily. He also has trouble coordinating his swallow, so he eats through a port in his stomach called a G-tube or feeding tube. We feed him smoothies or a blend of fruits and vegetables and other foods. We have explained his tracheostomy to children by telling them that Finn wears a special device that's like a tube in his throat that helps him breathe, and that he eats from a port in his stomach because the muscles in his mouth don't work well, and he can't chew or swallow food. We like to remind kids that everyone eats through a tube, i.e. their esophagus. Finn's tube is just a little different than theirs. Because of Finn's physical challenges, he uses a wheelchair in the classroom, and at home we have devices that he can use to help him stand and take steps. He has a lot of physical therapy when he's not in school, but sometimes we take him out of school for special physical therapy sessions. We are hopeful that he will be able to move independently one day, probably assisted by a motorized wheelchair or other equipment. So you can see that I just did a very factual overview of Finn, of his tracheostomy, of his feeding tube, of his wheelchair. So it kind of gives people an idea of what to expect and why. And I can't tell you how much this has helped parents be more comfortable when interacting with me, with my son. If parents are comfortable, their children are comfortable. So really being open about what's going on is incredibly helpful. Okay, so the next section is where we described all of the things about our child that make up their personality, including their likes and interests. And it's important to remember that even though your child may have differences, other children really focus on the similarities. So the more that you can talk about things that your child enjoys, the more that those mainstream typical children can start to draw connections between themselves and your child. So this is what we wrote in the next section. Finn is interested in most things that 8-year-olds like. He loves all kinds of books, especially Harry Potter, movies, American Ninja Warrior, The Voice, music and songs, riding on his bike, although it's a special bike designed just for him, and swimming. He understands what we say to him, but he can't control the muscles in his mouth well enough to form words, so he is nonverbal at this point. But just because he can't talk doesn't mean that he doesn't have lots of opinions and thoughts, and he loves to communicate by vocalization and facial expressions. We find that when Finn first meets new people, he can be pretty shy and quiet, but once he gets comfortable in a new environment, he laughs and smiles all the time and lets us know when he's not happy about something. He can be very vocal when he's excited. Finn uses a special computer that he controls with his eyes to communicate called a Toby. We have been working a lot over the past few years on his classroom communication and communicating with other kids or teachers to show his thoughts and preferences. That's kind of what we said about Finn's personality. The next section is really crucial because this explains the way that that parents can talk about the disability with their child, and also how typical children can interact with my child. That part is really important because it gives the kids confidence to interact with him when he's in the mainstream classroom. You have to keep in mind too, many of the classroom parents and children have never interacted with a special needs child. And it would be wonderful if everyone, had experienced a special needs child and was really open and curious and kind, but that's just not reality. And so it's really helpful if you can give people ways to interact with your child, because it gives them the confidence to interact, and it's very helpful. So this is what we said in that section. When Finn is meeting children for the first time, we found it helpful to explain that Finn's muscles got hurt when he was a baby, and so he can't walk or talk like they can. We've explained that he can't move the muscles in his mouth very well, so he can't form words to talk to them, but that he understands what they are saying. And we emphasize that Finn likes a lot of the same things they like. So even though he's a little different in some ways, he's really a lot like them in other ways. We also like to make sure that kids understand that they can't get sick or hurt in any way by playing with Finn. We have found that children are often very curious and ask a lot of great questions. We love getting these questions because the kids are obviously interested in knowing more. No question is silly or in any way offensive to us or Finn. Because of Finn's special needs, he has a nurse who accompanies him to school every day. These young women are like family to us and help us care for Finn. Your children are welcome to ask Finn's nurse questions at school. Finn loves it when kids and adults around him talk to him and laugh with him. If kids want to interact with Finn, they can talk to him, understanding that he can't talk back, and they can hold his hand or squeeze his arm and show him what they're working on. It's best if you hold this up at Finn's eye level so that he can see it well. Kids can read to him, they can help push his wheelchair. Hugs are welcome too. Every year since Finn has been in school, we've been so touched how the children enjoy and include Finn and don't seem to focus much on his challenges. I have included some pictures of Finn below for you and your children to see. That really, again, gives parents and children confidence that there are ways that they can interact with him, which are okay with us and okay with Finn. And everybody who uses this letter, you just need to decide what your comfort level is. Obviously, I wrote this letter pre-COVID, so COVID may certainly impact some of those ways that you want people to interact with your kids. But just decide what your comfort level is and go from there. So the last section is the conclusion, and this leaves the door open for other parents to communicate with you. And as I mentioned before, I always include pictures with the letter so that children and parents can really see what your child looks like, what their wheelchair looks like, pictures of them doing some of the activities that you might have described above. That's really helpful for kids to really start relating to your child as just another child. So our conclusion just simply says, please don't hesitate to email or call us if you or your children have any questions about Finn or just want to reach out. We're not offended or burdened by talking about anything, and there's no question that you could ask us that we haven't heard before. And then I sign the letter and I include my cell phone and my email. And then, a number of pictures of my son. I just embed them in the letter doing various things. And let me see if I can do a quick screen share of this letter, the pictures at the end so you can see it. Okay, so here we are at the end of the letter, and I've included a picture of my son using his communication device with some other kids. I've included a picture of him in his walker. I really like including a picture of him in his walker because he is in his wheelchair at school. And I think it really helps kids understand that he can be upright, which is a concept that they probably won't see too often in school. I like to include a picture of him with his sibling so that, again, they can kind of relate to the fact like, oh, I have siblings and he has a sibling and they're interacting just like rolling around on the floor like siblings do. And here's another picture of my son laughing with his physical therapist so they can, kind of see that he laughs and enjoys things just like they do. Those are just a few of the pictures that I've chosen. And I feel like those are helpful ones. I'm sure you all have pictures that other kids could really relate to. So just pick your favorites. So that's it. That's the mainstream letter. It has helped us so much every year. I have been so touched by the many emails and text messages and things I've received from parents each year that my son's been in school. He's now in 4th grade. And it's been a real game changer for us. It's made me feel so much more included with the parents at his school, and I think it's helped our son be so much more included by other kids in the classroom, just because they feel so empowered and so comfortable because of the information in this letter. So that's it. So I'm going to link to my blog below. I'll have a template on there. Feel free to use it. And that's it. So that's it. So don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share this video with anyone who might be helped by it. Thanks, everybody.